What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about that Variety article from a few days ago that talked a little bit about the future of DC games. They actually talked about the Wizarding World as well and kind of just let it go by. This is where the news of Hogwarts Legacy selling 22 million units came out, and so they went over more stuff. I want to, for this video, focus on the DC side of things. If you guys want me to talk about the Wizarding World stuff, definitely let me know in the comments, and I can probably make that video next or tomorrow or whatever. But the DC side was quite interesting. But there was a little bit of confusion of, like, is Wonder Woman the James Gunn kind of infusion thing where that's going to have to follow the rules of the cinematic universe he's making and all that? I don't think so, but I remember seeing that kind of controversy. So what I want to do, and it's kind of just one little, section of the article, let's just read it and I'll talk about my opinion on it. And then they also later on talk about the more live service, constant updates, and we'll talk about that too. So they say, coming up, WB Games will be launching Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League on February 2nd, which Haddad calls one of our most ambitious projects ever, and the wide release for the free-to-play brawler game Multiverses, which I commonly forget is still coming out this year, which features WB-owned characters ready to battle. Looking ahead further, the studio has a single-player, open-world action Wonder Woman game in the works, as well as games that will be canon additions to James Gunn and Peter Safran's planned relaunch of the DC universe. And then they get into the live service stuff. So let's talk about that part first. I think there's separation, right? You have the Wonder Woman stuff, and then you also have the stuff that's tied to him. Now, the most important thing to me, well, actually, there's two. One's a fun fact, or one's a fun little addition. So we talked about, is Wonder Woman going to have any of these, live service things? It's funny that, and, we've kind of debunked that and all that jazz, but it's funny that you throw out what the Wonder Woman game is in this, article, right? So just making it very, very clear. It is single player, right? Like, not always online and all that. So, hey, look, I just want to see this game. Can we please, for the love of God, get an announcement in 2024? But the biggest thing that you get from that entire, paragraph, the fact that there's already games, and it's plural. It's plural. So, and that's important. At least it's important to me if I'm reaching here, because there's games that are additions to this, universe that they're building. Which means, to me, there's got to be other games being made besides the ones from WB Montreal, Rocksteady, Monolith, right? There's that second WB Montreal game, which I believe is supposed to be a single player. That's the one I've theorized, in past videos. If that's the Superman game, that one makes the most sense to be it. Rocksteady, we've never really gotten any word that Rocksteady is making more than one game. It's possible they are, but again, how I look at it, well, number one, okay, there's the confirmation, right? You're going to get games in the next few years that are going to be, we're going to see what this experiment is, that they're going to be tied in to the cinematic universe. And I don't know if that'll work. We talked about that when it was, first announced that they were doing it. Not a huge fan. My biggest thing is more of like the personal freedom stuff where it's like they probably want to make their own thing. And then this certainly sounds like you're forcing them into, you have to, fit it in this bubble, and you have to play around with timelines, and you have to make sure, you don't mess with certain things. To a small extent, or to an extent in general, yeah, you kind of have to do that with any game, especially if you're part of a franchise or, like a well-known thing. You have to play around with stuff, but this is just another one to add to it. But also, again, plural, so more than one. We're going to see this kind of take place over the next couple of years from more than one game. And like I said, so Rocksteady, I mean, yeah, I guess if Rocksteady's working on 2 games, which we don't know that for sure, but maybe they are. WB Montreal, they're doing 2 games, so you would imagine that kind of counts. Monolith, I actually think there was talk, or there was rumors that Monolith is working on more than one game. I think we looked at maybe a job posting that said that, or I remember talking about that. So I guess it's possible that they are still staying within their family. But again, if we're reaching, which I try to do for something like this, I would hope, all jokes aside, I would hope that this is another sign that, for the love of God, can you please go outside of your own personal bubble of the studios you own and ask ask for pitches. Let's get some other, DC games coming, not from the people that you own. And again, depends on how you look at it, because if WB Montreal is working on a second game, and if which we know they are, actually, they're working on two, and then if Monolith is working, say, on a second game, which I think we kind of know, that is 2 games. That would be plural. So it would actually fit, what was said. So we'll see what happens. Regardless, more games DC-wise coming. Suicide Squad, after that's done, Wonder Woman is it. And we don't have a lot to talk about Wonder Woman-wise. So I am a fan, of constantly keeping this well-filled, right? Now, there is a part that worries me, okay? We got to throw it in. It's actually right at the end. So they talk about keeping people long-term. Okay, what the plan is. And, again, from like the Hogwarts Legacy perspective, I truly don't understand this. You have a game that comes out and just does, insane numbers that are reserved for some of the highest selling games of all time. You have a single player game do that. And then your idea in the future is to have live service elements in almost all, if not all, of your games, because that's where the moneymaker is. Yes, that will make money, or it's possible to make money. They are going to do it, so there's really nothing I can say about it. But it's just hilarious that happens right after one of the best-selling games of all time comes out, and it's a single-player open-world game. So they talk about this. Let's read it out. So they specifically talk about that whole 3 to 4 year release schedule and bringing people back to games. And he says that the path is the accumulation of keeping live games launched with new content, keeping our mobile game services vibrant, and large launching new content. And they say perhaps there is reason to hold out hope for DLC for Hogwarts Legacy. After all, when WB Games leadership previously said there were no plans for that, when you ask us what our goals are, it's really that macro goal of making sure that we get as much engagement from the fans or with the fans as possible using content and releases and updates and live services. Just a lot of words, Now, the first part of that definitely sounded like a more genre-based, like, if we have mobile stuff, we do mobile-like things for it. If we have live service stuff, we do live service things. Now again, for this video's purpose, I kind of want to stick to DC. What I get with the DC side of things, and also, I guess, Hogwarts, Wizarding World does kind of come into this. When you have these open world or, whatever, single-player games, there's going to be something there, that live service element. Now, as people have pointed out, like, even past Assassin's Creed games, like, there are ways live service can simply mean dropping DLC, every 3 to 6 months. And this is for not a game that's like online only or, like a Suicide Squad, let's say, not necessarily that, because that game is by default, multiplayer. And even if you don't play it multiplayer, you still, at least at launch, need to always be online. And it's always you and 3 bots, or those bots will be filled with online players, right? That's default. There's no changing that. So say Wonder Woman, right? And the next Hogwarts Legacy, and then, whatever. All these DC games, even if there's DC games that are single player, it sounds like there's a plan in place to add to it. It worries me because we've seen it be done wrong. And I mean, that, to be honest with you, that is most boiled down reasoning why I'm worried. I've long talked about, I'm not a big fan of live service, and it's just not the thing I'm into. Again, you can do it right. It's literally constantly updating your game. And that doesn't have to mean like this egregious and predatory kind of spending stuff. Now, the issue is most times it is that. Most times it's greedy. Most times you get the Diablo, horse armor for $60. It's that, and not to throw it under the bus, because Diablo 4 as a core is a good game. But it's that kind of garbage, honestly, that happens all the time, big and small. And I just don't want that invading games. Like, I mean, that's my honest point. So that's why I've always been so hostile towards it, and that's why I get worried about something like this, because they themselves have messed this up, or in the past. Like, you had Shadow of War. That was really, really bad, and that was that was Monolith, and that was, more specifically, I guarantee you, that was WB that demanded to put that stuff in. So it's not like they've never done it wrong before, because they absolutely have. And as an industry, it is absolutely done wrong more often than it is done right. That's why the ones that are right are kind of these glowing examples, and they're the bigger ones, and they're the ones that everybody kind of talk, maybe, but they're ones that have that kind of notoriety. Why? Because they're so rare. They're so rare when they are done right that you have to make a point out of them, because there's so many terrible ones. So I don't know. Is there a way of doing it right? Yeah. You know, if you were to add to Wonder Woman for like 2 years after it comes out, as long as you're doing it where it's like, maybe it's like literal DLC like storylines, like you add new content. I mean, like we've had DLCs, we've had these storyline DLCs. You pay 10, 15, 20 bucks. GTA 4, you know, had these big, huge DLC stories. They're excellent. They're actually just amazing games on their own. So it can be done. But we're in a world of, again, much more predatory kind of meat. I'm not sold that they won't be, you know, that kind of way. And I don't know. We'll have to see it play out. I'm not going to say I'm going in it, you know, kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt, because all of these companies kind of lost that with me many, many years ago. So it's absolutely a prove it situation when it comes to me. You have to prove that when you say all of these games are going to be live service in some way, and you're going to be adding to them over time, whether they're single player, whether they're mobile, whether they're this or that, they're all going to be treated as, well, we want people to be playing it years down the line, so we have to keep adding to it. You do not get my benefit of the doubt. You have to prove to me that you're not doing it for, you know, kind of, which is hard because they are doing it for predatory. They're doing it to milk the consumers for money, not just at launch, but for years. At its core, it is kind of like an attack. Like it is like we want to siphon money from you. So you have to like give us something that's worth it. I guess that, you know, I have to feel like it's worth it in order for you to get away, you know, with this kind of thing that you're doing. So I don't know. We'll see. But it doesn't, I never like reading it. I've never liked reading it, you know, in the past. And we keep seeing it. Like all these articles, they all say it. Every time WB talks about their future with these games, it's always the same kind of thing. And, even like Mortal Kombat 1 has had some issues with like those selling of fatality. There's actually a lot of drama regarding that. Like a few months ago, they kind of fixed it at least a little bit. It's not like it's not happening, you know, and that's just a defense of myself. It's not like we're seeing it be played out perfectly. There's terrible examples all the time. They haven't earned my trust. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.